Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome everybody to the product roadmap webinar that we are having today. It's great to see so many people that have joined in and are interested in learning about the new features that we have going on at Hevo. So today we have people from the product team, Puneet and Arav, who will be taking us through all the new features that we have planned for Q1 of 2024. Just some hygiene items. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please drop them in the Q&A tab that you see at the bottom of your screen. People from the product team will either respond to them in the chat itself, or we'll take them up at the end live. With that, I think we can get started with the webinar. I'll hand it over to Puneet to get started. Thank you everyone for joining once again. Puneet, over to you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Brief introduction. Maitli, next slide.
Yes.
Agenda. So we'll first introduce the PM team at Hevo so that he can put a name to the face. And then we're going to walk you through some of the new features we are working on. So brand new pipeline creation flow and some observability and job monitor capabilities that we're going to talk about and actually demonstrate. We have a working prototype that we're going to share in this screen. And then talk about some long-term roadmaps now, next, later. And then finally, hopefully we'll have enough time for you to ask questions and the product team to be able to answer them. With that, next slide, Maitli. Introduction of our team. As you know, I'm Puneet, head of data, head of product at Hevo Data. And joining me today is Rashmi, Arav, and Rupa. They're all PMs on my team, and they're all based out of Bangalore and are on this call ready to answer any questions that you may have. And some of them will be driving the demo as well during this webinar. So thank you, PM team, for joining. And next slide, Maitli. Okay, Arav, do you want to take this?
Sure. Thanks, Puneet. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the demo. So as part of our observability-based initiatives, this is the first feature that's coming out pretty soon. So we're happy to announce the capability for users to be able to use audit tables. So what are audit tables? This is like a basic capability for users to be able to move all their job histories to their warehouse where they can use it as self-serve analytics. It's just similar to a baseline log of what Hevo is doing underneath. It'll be a new capability which you will be able to configure from your alerts tab, where you can enable audit table and push it to a destination that you have configured of your choice. You will get the capability to see what is happening, how many audit logs have been ingested, schedule it for 3 hours to up to 24 hours per day. And we will be moving all the logs of every job that ran within Hevo to your destination. Maitli, next slide. So we'll be creating 2 tables at the end of the day, one job details, one object details. So object being something like a table for you at Hevo, and job being one unit of work that we are executing to ingest that data and to load it eventually. So at every job, you will get capability to see which pipeline is that job associated to, which source, which destination, when did it start, when did it end, eventually calculating a full duration of how much time it actually took to finish it from ingestion to load. Also get more granular details when you append it with job-based inputs, where you get how many input rows were there, how many output rows were there, and visibility into any error-based rows, how many billable rows were there. So you can also compute where you're going in your usage. If there are any error rows, you can also get to know which object is having those error rows, so that you know where the data is missing. This is a baseline of what we'll be seeing throughout this demo. It powers a lot of what is there to come, but this is just the beginning or the just a small scratch on the surface, which we are enabling today, and there is a lot more to come. Next slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Arav. So next, I'm going to walk you through a small prototype of the new pipeline creation and all the functionality we are adding to help you when you create pipelines in terms of schema management, error handling, scheduling, refresh jobs, field selection, marking fields as PII fields, masking them, and things like that. So give me one second while I get set up and share my screen. Is my screen visible? We good to go, Arav?
Good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the confirmation. So this is the brand new Chrome or layout we're going to actually introduce in the next version of Hevo, where all your tooling and toolbars are on the left side, and you get a bigger workspace to work with when you're building pipelines and looking at fields and objects and things like that. So it gives you more vertical space and it's better organized. So all your toolbars are all on the left side, and you can collapse the toolbar to increase your workspace area. So one thing we're going to start with in the new version is we'll always bring you to the pipeline list page. So it's no longer be a drawer. It'll be a page on its own, and where you can actually filter and look at what pipelines, what status they are in, and even look at the job history for each one of the pipelines. I'm going to talk about job history in a bit because it's, as Arav said, it's a basic tenet of everything else that we're doing is to give you more observability into what pipelines are doing at that point of time and complete history of what pipelines are doing in the past. So here I have a list of pipelines, some from Google Sheets, some from Postgres and MongoDB, going to different warehouses. I can enable, disable them. I can filter for these pipelines. But today, I'm just going to walk you through of creating a new pipeline because I want to demonstrate all the new stuff that you'll be able to do when you create pipelines with the new version. So I'm going to click on Create Pipeline. One of the key things we are working on today is when you create a pipeline, you create a source every time. So even if you're trying to create a pipeline, multiple pipelines, let's say from PG-SQL, every time you have to create a new source. So what we are doing is allowing you to reuse sources, so you don't have to create multiple sources every time you create a pipeline. So in this case, you will have an option to select an existing source, which you don't do today, or you can configure a new source as well. You'll be able to look for free sources. We are also introducing a concept called early access, where when we release new features, they'll be first in early access, and then they'll be generally available. So you can filter for early access sources and then use them if there's something that you would like to try out. And during early access, those features are free to use. You won't get billed for them. In this case, I'm going to choose an existing data source. So I'm going to choose PG-SQL. Once you choose your source, you'll be asked to choose a destination. This you already do. Destinations are reusable today. So during this demo, I'm going to show you how to configure a new destination and what all new options are going to be there. So I'm going to click on Configure New Destination, and you'll see all the destinations that we support today. And I'm going to create a Snowflake destination. You can enter your credentials. The big change that we're going to make in destination is we're going to allow you to have a few more options while loading data. So by default, it's going to be append. So we're just going to append the data and not do a costly merge in the warehouse. But you can choose to do a merge. One more option we're going to add is the overwrite. This is a truncate and load option. So what it does is it resets your data, and you'll be able to do the override or a truncate and load when you configure refresh jobs as well. So whenever you go to an object and actually say do a full refresh trigger historical load. At that point also, you'll be able to say during trigger historical or do a full refresh if you want to do a truncate and load, or do you want to do a merge on the entire table. So that's, and you'll also be able to configure your batch sizes. So this is typical when you have, based on your warehouse size, you may not be able to do a very large batch, so you will be able to control your batch size as well. I'm going to click test and continue. It's going to go and get a list of all objects from the source. In this case, I'm using PG-SQL. So by default, in my source, I had configured the default mode as Xmin, and that's what got selected. But if I'm doing Xmin and I'm doing a merge in the warehouse, I need to specify a primary key. For this object, a primary key was not specified on the source. So the UI is leading you to tell you that there is a key that needs to be defined for that object. So I'm actually going to click on that and resolve that error. So here are some of the changes we worked on. First, you'll be able to do a data preview to look at the table to see if that table is actually something that you want to bring in. Briefly do a preview, and then you'll be able to choose your source, override your ingestion mode, query mode, and your load mode at the table level also. So you can have a default, but you can override it at the table level. And then you'll be able to easily define select fields, unselect fields, define primary keys. So I'm going to resolve that error because it was saying a primary key is required. And then you'll also be able to mark certain fields as PII. So if you would, like to obfuscate or hash certain data before it's loaded into the warehouse, you can either unselect the PII field, so you don't bring it in the first place, or you can choose to mask it, and that's when you will mark it as a PII field. I'm going to apply changes. Now that error is resolved, and then I have a primary key defined for all objects that I have. If an object for some reason is not selectable, we are going to disable it, but we're going to show it, disabled. So you are very clear that what all objects are not supported because of some reason. This happens quite a bit in SaaS sources like Salesforce and other sources where certain objects are not implemented for bulk querying. So they'll be shown as disabled so that you're clear why a certain object cannot be selected instead of it just not showing up. And there are questions raised on what is in the ERD and as such. So once you completed your object selection, click continue. Here is where most of the work in pipeline configuration is, where you'll be able to specify specific functional behavior. So one of the things we're going to add is error handling. So in case of an error, now you can choose if you want to abort the entire job or do you want to continue processing. So this has been one of the key feedbacks we've received from the field is that if you actually do an incomplete load, where one of the objects, for example, you're loading a fact table and dimensions, and somehow one of the dimension table fails, and now when you do a post-load transformation, all your reports look off because your dimension table didn't load. So in this case, some customers have asked, do not continue loading. I want to abort the entire job so that I don't do any downstream transformations, which can be costly. So customers will have an option to actually abort the entire job if there are any errors during the pipeline. You can choose to continue processing. And if you choose a continue processing, you will also have an option to what to do if an object in the pipeline has failure. So for example, let's take that same example of a dimension table. Now, if some of the rows in the dimension table, because there is a data mismatch in the type, like it's not a date field, and trying to insert rows into Snowflake is failing. In those cases, you can choose whether you want to abort that object or you want to do a partial load into that object. So suppose you had 1 million rows and only 2 were failing, you may want to do a partial load and not abort. So that also you'll be able to set at the object level. Once you define the error handling, you can also choose your schema evolution setting. So by default, it's only going to do column level changes in a table, but you can say allow all changes. That means everything, including table addition, new schemas, new databases, everything, we will automatically bring in and replicate to your warehouse. You can also choose to block all changes, and some customers have asked that, because of compliance, they don't want Hevo to automatically bring in new tables, new fields, and new schemas. So for those use cases, you can even choose to block all changes. So you will only bring in the tables and fields that you've actually defined during your pipeline setup. Some of the other things we are going to do is, a lot of times what happens is during schema evolution, you might reach a state where we cannot automatically apply the schema changes because it will result in data loss on your existing historical data. So in that case, the pipeline will stop because we can't proceed any further. We can't apply the schema. But in order to auto recover, you can choose to say trigger auto reload. So what we'll do is, if this option is selected, we'll automatically clear the warehouse and recreate the table and do a historical load for you. So it'll automatically recover from breaking changes in your source side or destination side schema changes. Another thing that has been customers have asked repeatedly is to enable hard deletes. So right now, Hevo marks a field whenever we replicate deleted rows. We mark a field saying deleted, Hevo deleted equal to true. If you enable this option, then instead of doing a soft delete in the warehouse, we're going to do a hard delete. So that row will be permanently deleted from your warehouse when we do a replication. Finally, we are going to allow this. You already have an option to set the frequency at the pipeline. We are moving to one frequency. Right now, you can set frequencies at an ingestion and at a load level, different frequencies. We're going to actually move to a single frequency where the entire job runs at that particular frequency. So the ingestion schedule and the load schedule is going to be at the same frequency. In addition to the pipeline frequency, you can configure a refresh job. So what refresh jobs allow you to do is, suppose during incremental processing, for some reason, long-running transactions or some other edge cases, there is a drift in the data and there is a data mismatch because we couldn't capture some deletes. So in order to overcome them automatically, you can configure a full refresh where we'll do a truncate and load every week, or you can do it at a month basis. And so you can be rest assured that even if there was a data drift and there was a data mismatch, or the schema was changes were getting too out of hand, you can then do automatic truncate and load on a weekly or a monthly basis. And you can configure this on an object level. So you don't have to do this for the entire pipeline. You can also choose which objects to do a scheduled refresh. This is, one of the last thing we're going to allow you to do is checksum. So when a pipeline runs, it's already going to do a checksum on the ingested rows and loaded rows. And if they don't match, it's going to mark the job as completed with warnings or failed, and how you actually choose this option. Based on that, either going to abort that job or actually say it's completed with warnings. But you can also configure a separate job, which will on a schedule basis go and check the number of rows in your source and compare that with the data in your destination. And if there are any mismatches, then it'll give you a report on what are the different mismatches that it found in your source and destination. So, and this is a data quality check that we are going to give so that you are rest assured that your pipelines are working exactly how you configured them to be. And if there are mismatches, you don't have to do manual investigation into this. Hevo will automatically determine if there's a mismatch and alert you if such a thing were to happen. So I've set all these options. I'm going to save the pipeline. So the new thing that's going to happen is, as soon as you save the pipeline, it's going to bring you to a job monitor or job history. And the audit table is actually driven from this job monitor or job history in Hevo. So every run is going to give you deterministic number of how many events ingested, how many loaded, and how many failed, and how many of the rows were billable, and the status of that job. Now, this job will complete, so it will not always be running. When we start a new job, you'll see a new row here, but you can drill down into this. So I can actually drill down into that job and see how many objects are there, who triggered it, was it triggered on a schedule, or did someone go and manually trigger it, saying run now? What are the different objects, what is the status? So even at the object level, you can drill down and see different stages. So ingestion, how many rows, how much duration did ingestion take, how many input events, how many output events, and what is the status of the stage itself. So in this case, the ingestion is completed, but it's trying to still load everything into the warehouse, and it's also telling how many rows actually failed. So for those rows that are failed, you'll be able to sample those rows and understand why they're failing and address them. If it's a schema map issue, or if it's a data type issue, then you can actually go back and re-trigger this particular job again. You will also have an option to cancel a job. So this you don't have today. You'll be able to cancel a job, make changes, then come back and re-trigger and rerun the pipeline manually from that screen. So it gives you full visibility, full control, and then you can set alerts at a job level. So if a job has errors or certain objects are failing, you can set up alerts at that level to say, only give me alerts when a job completes, and tell me if there were some certain errors at an object level or a pipeline level. So I'm going to go back, and you can, obviously this is a trend we show at all our pipelines. So you can see your consumption trend over time, which is a aggregation of all the jobs that have run for that pipeline. And you'll be able to see this this is for one pipeline that I just built, but you'll be able to see this across all pipelines also. So you have a consolidated view called Job Monitor, where you can go and see every job for every pipeline that's been run in your business, and you'll be able to track event consumption, your billing usage, and everything in one page. And that's all I had for the demo. I'm gonna go back to my slide deck to talk about the different features and details other than what I've already shown you in the demo. Give me 1 second while I actually switch tabs. All right, so that was the demo. I hope you are excited about. There's a lot of features we are working on in there, both at the ingestion, pipeline, monitoring, scheduling, refresh, checksums, field selection, object selections that I know a lot of people have been asking, and will be glad to see them actually materializing in the product. I'm going to go into details about some of the other things outside of the demo that I've talked about. So let's dig straight into the other features we are working on right now. So pipeline monitoring and observability is one of the key things we keep hearing about Hevo pipelines. So we are going to give this capability. I showed you a brief of that, but it'll give you full visibility in what your pipelines are doing, or where are they in different stages, what are the event counts, how many events are remaining, how many events have failed, if any, and how many pipelines are running at that particular instance of time. Then we'll also give you a reconciliation service where you will be able to do a checksum on your source and destination to validate that your pipelines are always consistent and there is no data mismatch across your source and destination systems. In terms of resiliency and improvement in terms of both performance, scale, latency, error handling, monitoring, and logging, we made significant improvements to our enterprise database connectors, mostly Oracle and SQL Server. And some of these improvements are targeted for low latency use cases. So you can get very low latency replication from, let's say, Oracle log miner, redo logs to actual warehouses. And then in log miner, we've added enhancements to reduce memory footprint from our source, both memory and resource usage like disk usage and CPU usage that log miner actually puts on your source database. So we've actually made optimization so that there's not as much of pressure on the database when we are using log miner to replicate events. We are to enable low latency use cases. We are also going to add support for online redo logs. Right now, we only support archived redo logs. So we're going to add that support so you can read directly from your online redo logs and replicate that data. To improve throughput, we've added parallelization support, both for Oracle and SQL Server. And we've also done some parallelization between ingestion and load. So, there is increased throughput from your source to destination events. In terms of change tracking, we've done some enhancements so that you could, it's easier to select objects which are enabled for change tracking and then automatically add objects that get enabled later after you build the pipeline. So you can set it up, easier setup for change tracking, SQL Server change tracking. Another key feature we've been working on, and this is something that our large customers have asked us, is add support for replicating data to a blob store, be it S3, GCS, or Azure. And then start supporting the newer open table formats like Iceberg and Hoodie. Once the data is in your data lake, you can query it directly from your Snowflake, BigQuery, Redshift, Spark, Trino, DuckDB, you name it. Any query engine you want to use, you write it once to the data lake, you can query using your query engine of choice. We are going to integrate this with a Metastore. In terms of AWS, for example, when we write to S3, we'll automatically create the table in your Glue Metastore, Iceberg table in your Glue, Iceberg or Hive meta table in your Glue Metastore. And for Snowflake, when that feature becomes GA, we'll also create that table in Snowflake Metastore. So you can query it directly, Iceberg table directly in Snowflake as well. Same thing with, in BigQuery, there is something called Big Lake, which will also allow you to do exactly the same thing, where a table is automatically created and you can query it from BigQuery, even though the data is still in GCS and not in BigQuery. What this will allow users is to replicate all of the data at any scale. So, and not have to worry about increasing cost, warehouse load cost or warehouse querying cost. So you will be able to essentially build a tiered storage where all of your data is in a data lake, but you only take partial partitions of that data. Like, for example, you may have your entire historical data in a data lake, but you only take the most recent 3 months and load them to a warehouse so you can query it and do operational reporting. So it'll allow you to have a tiered storage and manage your warehouse costs much better than having to do is to load everything in the warehouse in the first place. This is for new customers trying to onboard, and for existing customers too who want to move to a consolidated billing through their marketplaces. So we've added support for AWS Marketplace already. So if you're a AWS customer and you have an enterprise pricing plan, you've made certain number of minimum credits commitments to AWS. Now you can use a Hevo subscription through Marketplace and burn down those credits in AWS. Similarly, we're going to add support for Google Marketplace and Azure Marketplace as well in the coming quarters. We're also going to be on the Snowflake Partner Connect as well during this time. And then finally, here's a summary slide of everything that I talked about. What's coming now, what's coming next, and what is coming later. That is basically in the next 6 months or later. So, and I've broken this down into reliability and performance. This is the key theme for all our changes right now is reliability and performance, and monitoring and observability and alerting, so that we can, your pipelines are resilient and run and without failures and perform well. And two, if there are issues, then you get alerted, proactively alerted, and Hevo can go and address those issues even before you realize there is an issue. And then some new features in terms of new destinations and functionality around error handling and job handling, things like that. So in terms of reliability and performance, we talked about the Oracle and SQL Server hardenings, low latency use cases, increased throughput, improved telemetry. And finally, we are going to start offering, for the technical folks in the room, we are going to start offering Debezium-based log-based connectors for Oracle SQL Server, PG-SQL, and MySQL as well. But that is would be a long-term as part of a roadmap. In terms of monitoring and alerting, we are going to get audit tables right now. We'll give you the job monitor very soon in the next 3 months. And then later, we're going to give you the checksum and reconciliation service to automatically detect data mismatches between your source and destination. We'll also going to add alerts. So whenever a schema change happens, we're going to start giving you alerts for the schema changes. In terms of new features, now we're going to give you a marketplace subscription and billing for AWS. Next, we're going to give S3 as a destination. We are also going to add Snowpipe. So if you want to have very low latency use case and want to stream data, let's say from an Oracle redo log directly to Snowflake, you will be able to do that using our Snowpipe and Oracle redo log source. We'll also give you scheduling options where you can schedule, instead of at a 5-minute or a 15-minute frequency, you can have a pipeline always running in streaming mode. So if you have a low latency use case and a pipeline needs to replicate in a certain time, then you can use that scheduling option, which we're going to call streaming in our product. In terms of later, we're going to give you granular control of schema changes, something that I showed on the demo. And then all or nothing semantics for people who care about that, their downstream transformation should only run if the load succeeds completely. And then one of the things that I haven't talked about at all during the demo is we are going to come up with a connector toolkit, which will allow you to very simply build a Lambda function or a serverless, write a simple class, implement a few interfaces, and write your custom connectors and deploy them in Hevo and start using them immediately. So if you have sources which we don't offer, you'll be able to either write your own or use third-party SIs to help you write your own connectors and deploy them in your Hevo instance. So that's about it. I think in terms of what we are planning, it's quite a bit, and you'll slowly start these rolling out. For example, the audit table you'll start seeing this month itself in December, mid-December. So it's going to be an early access. So if you're interested in signing up for early access, let us know. And we will, based on your use case, we will enable it in your account. And then some things are going to come in Q1 and some things are going to roll out in Q2. Finally, we are starting a Hevo Design Partner Program, and this is for the technical folks in the room who would want to participate and work with Hevo PM and design team to help us define the next set of features that we are building. And then help influence the roadmap, influence the features themselves, test the features, test the prototypes, provide feedback. So what we need is, if you sign up for this program, is a minimum 1 hour commitment from you per week. And then for you, we will give you discounts on your Hevo subscription if you're part of this program. And we'll also give you early access to the Hevo features. If the design partner program is too involved, and if you just want to have a one-on-one with PMs, you can always have a Calendly link that we are going to copy and paste in the chat link that you can use to actually set up a one-on-one session with any of the PMs in our team to provide feedback or get more details on some of the features I mentioned, that if you want to drill down and get more details on exactly when they're coming or how they're going to perform in your scenario for your use case, we'll be happy to have a follow-up one-on-one with you on that. So that's about it. And we'll take any questions in the chat.